but still allowing us to not offset some of the many priorities that we put on staff and in the staff work plan. So my recommendation in that respect, or I guess my motion, would be a modification of option 3, which is that we proceed with the pilot project that we asked for staff to advertise to get other opportunities for those to follow the recommended process, and that then be followed 12 to 18 months later with a public consultation process like that of the urban chickens. Second. Phil, thank you very much. Finally, I just want to say I can appreciate that there are a lot of concerns around what the impact may be of having goats in the urban environment. Although this process may not be dissimilar to that of urban chickens, I do recognize that the impact of owning goats may be larger than that of chickens. So I think the pilot is a great opportunity for us to sort that out, to work out some of the necessary details and understand the impacts here in Saanich. We're not Denver, we're not Seattle, we're not San Francisco or San Diego. This is Saanich, and we don't know exactly what the impacts will be. So I look forward to finding out more of that experience, and I'm hopeful that Ms. McHugh will get the opportunity to find out that experience for herself in her own backyard. So thank you.
I'll go to Mayor Atwell next.
Thank you, Chair. No, I think I can support this recommendation. I think it's clear from the report that option 3 is a combination of the other 2 options. I think it's very important that we do a pilot study on this and then take another step after we've seen the results of it. While there are a lot of facts in the report and a lot of information from experience from other cities, we haven't yet experienced it here ourselves, and we really don't know the level of support, what the impact on the neighbors is going to be. And I think that largely the success of this is going to depend on the participants in the pilot program and how well they do and how they become ambassadors for this. Costs seem low for this option. We don't quite know the full benefits of it all. Certainly the council has gone through the process of dealing with the backyard chickens, and I think at the time it was probably a similar situation, wondering what was going to happen as a result of it, but I think they've largely integrated into our urban lives, and it's quite pleasant to pass them where they do have exposure to roadways and walking paths and so forth. So I think we've got some very interested parties here in the audience and elsewhere, judging by what we've heard from our staff, and we should proceed with this option and get the pilot underway as soon as possible and learn from the experience and then decide what to do. And with that, I give it my support.
Thank you. Councillor Haynes, and then Councillor Workman.
I'd like to say I appreciate the way Councillor Murdoch brought the motion forward. We're actually accepting staff's recommendation, but we're putting a time phase in there that the survey part doesn't occur 12 to 18 months. And that's quite elegant because it addresses some of the concerns we've heard from staff and around the council table on the amount of work that is on the table of staff. There is a backlog of work, and staff are working as hard as they can to move the district through that work. So I would have been uncomfortable initiating the pilot project and option 3, which is the community engagement, at the same time. So I do appreciate the motion from Councillor Murdoch and the elegance of just doing a time shift on, so we get both pieces. But I also would like to say, I think it will give us a better outcome from the community engagement part, exactly for the reasons that the Mayor announced and that Councillor Murdoch announced, that we will have some made in the District of Saanich data. I hope it's going to be data that makes us all very happy, Gillian, and not data from neighbours calling down to say they lost their prize dahlias. But having seen you in committee and seen how careful you are of everything else, I don't expect that, at least from your husbandry. It's going to be the other citizens that come forward that maybe already have chickens and some other things. But I think the guidelines on the pen enclosures that are identified in option 1 give a high level of confidence that staff has done a lot to think how to minimise problems that may arise, and I think the pilot programme will be the testing ground for that, and I look forward to those results. Thank you very much.
Councillor Workman.
Thank you very much, Chair. This is a difficult one, and it's interesting, and we've all been there. When you're young, a year seems like a lifetime, And coming back to Jillian, I would just say to you, don't lose your smile, and some choices in life and some decisions that you find here tonight, they're not simple. They look so simple, and yet when you see the process that we must go through, there's so many issues that we have to look at. If you see my truck last year, it was a fairly new one, and a rat got underneath the hood. $4,000 later, just like you, I got the rat. A week later, a rat got underneath the hood. $3,500 later, I caught another rat. And I say that because what I don't know on this, but I have my thoughts. Coming back to the food, coming back to waste, and coming back to the manure, I have no idea what that does attract. But I have a funny feeling it does attract rodents in some shape or form. Coming back to costs, I remember the last couple of years I've been trying to get our bylaw people to ticket someone who had an infraction. But he only had the infraction on a weekend. That's the only time he came out. And the response I got, I didn't like it, but it was a response. We have to pay someone 4 hours minimum and double time to come out for an hour's work. And it wasn't a lot of money, but it was a lot of money. And coming back to the cost of doing this study, it's not simple. Also, I look at, and coming back, this has taken a long time to get here tonight. I had a request, and council had a request of staff about 3-4 years ago. I'm still waiting for the response from staff on it, so you haven't done too bad yet. A question I would ask, and I would suggest, is that if it was possible to go site-specific, that way we would approve yours after 6 weeks, 6 months, you would have your goal. But to open up the community and put that bylaw throughout the community, I would struggle with it. And I guess the question I do ask is, if we adopt a bylaw, or if we don't adopt it, what happens to the goats that are involved in that pilot project? Maybe I could ask staff that question. And before the answer, maybe I could just wrap up and say, because of that, I would support number 4, where we put it off and put it into the basket for all the other items that we have to look at. Staff, would you just tell me what happens to the goats?
That's something we'd be seeking direction from council. We actually have 3 items that we'd like to seek direction from you, which is on distance of notification, the length of the pilot, and also what would happen with the goats at the end. There's a number of options. One is outlined that they would need to be removed from the property and rehomed. The other option is that you could do a site-specific amendment, but that would be for up to 10 homeowners that would be allowed to have a goat, and realistically, they would have that goat till it dies, which could be up to 18 years, and then you'd need to ask yourself the question of, is that in perpetuity that they continue to have goats at that residence? So multiple homeowners resell the property, but goats are allowed in those 10. That's the difficult question. The other 2 are relatively easy.
Jillian, I told you things are not simple.
Thank you. Before I go to Councillor Sanders, the motion in front of us is to have the pilot, follow that up with a process of consultation. That changes option 3 somewhat. So would we be changing the length of time the person could retain the goat till the process, both the pilot was finished and the process of consultation? I presume that would be the case.
Correct, that would be. So if you look at an 18-month pilot and then staff undertaking a process that would take around 4 to 6 months, after that, I would recommend that the pilot be extended for 5 years, just to give us a buffer and to make sure that nobody's left in limbo.
Right. Yeah. We wouldn't want to see somebody have their goat removed and then we pass a bylaw that it was legal. That wouldn't work so well. Councillor Sanders.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Every time we have this conversation, it gets more convoluted, doesn't it? It sounds so simple, just having a goat. My grandchildren went to Beacon Hill. They wanted goats. My mother said, thank God they went home to Powell River and they talked about the goats again. Anyway, that's not to say that this is, the fact that the young lady wants a goat and make a decision. I am concerned about the taking staff time away, so if the idea that we could do a pilot and that the report or the study, the engagement would come afterwards, I could be fine with that. It does concern me that we've only had two people want to have goats, so, it might be a moot point, but there might not be 10 families that want to be part of the pilot, so, we don't know. So my big issue is that we do, as Councillor Berglund says, he's had something in 3 years. Last month I decided that my committee needed to know what happened to everything. Because many of these items that our Cultural Heritage Committee has done have come through council. And I was told that we get it to go through council, then it goes to the department and the work gets done. Well, I had a full page that just on arts and heritage, and that was from the planning department. Then there's the cultural side from recreation. So it does concern me when you have the one staff person that has to spread herself thin over all these, that we would be taking her from another project, particularly when we're looking at a heritage procedures bylaw, we're looking at a maintenance bylaw for our heritage, because as that delays, and this was an urgency 3 years ago, we are losing more and more of our heritage buildings because it's just demolition by neglect now. So that's my little concern there. But as far as the goats, I'm comfortable, I think, Councillor Margot's motion, because in the essence that it wouldn't take staff away at this time, and perhaps over the 12 months, 18 months, there would be an opportunity for our planner that does this to be able to deal with the backlog that she already has. Our planner has raised some issues here about what happens if at the end of the day that the pilot's not, successful, and these people have goats. I get to look at them, if they live 18 years, it's better than the 28-year turtle I have, that my daughter's husband wouldn't take when she got married. So, it's the last of 4, so, and it seems it could go on for a long time. Just adding something to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is such an interesting item because Saanich does allow goats within our rural areas and large lots. So this is introducing miniature goats within the urban area. Quite small lots actually, are 6 size lots. And as Julian said, she wants them as pets. So I think for me, if we're going to try and do some sort of pilot and to reflect on Saanich's policies within the OCP about farming, depending on how staff go out to the public, I would hope that at least a few applicants will be around farming as opposed to pet keeping, because there is a difference for us. And I think that we would like to support farming, and that's, the chicken process went through a whole public process and whatnot. So there is actually 2 issues here: keeping farm animals, miniature goats, as pets, or trying to create some sort of farming learning experience, maybe milking and things like that. So I don't know how staff would do it, but I think that I would, if this passes as a pilot project, I would like to see at least some of them being for farming, whether it's milking or husbandry. But that sort of thing. And I agree with the notification. I think that is prudent because they are a lot noisier than chickens. And I also think that there's a lot of requirements that'll be put on this family in their backyard to manage this issue. And it's not going to be cheap, it's going to be fairly expensive, but it will be a learning experience. But you have to understand that this is a very large municipality. I think last time I looked at our outstanding issues of initiatives that councils for 3 years have put forward over the years to staff on top of our strategic plan. There were over 30 initiatives that staff still have not gotten to. They're still dealing with the strategic plan. We have affordable housing, we have active transportation. We have a lot of initiatives And so considering we've only had one other person ask us about this, you have to appreciate that this is very small in relationship to the kind of work that this council has to do for the greater community. But saying that, I'm willing to support a pilot, but I think that it's really important that somehow there be some opportunity, because it's going to be difficult, I think, if the pilot doesn't prove successful after 18 months and you have to give up 2 goats that you've become quite attached to. You're going to have to think about that as well. I too am a mother. I bought my daughter a horse when she was 14. That horse is now 20 years old and will live another 20 years. So I can tell you, when my daughter was young, she thought we could keep it on our house, backyard. So these things are long-term commitments. And I know you're determined. I can see that in your eyes, and your family supports you, and that's great. But you have to recognize that this is a big-time commitment. So I'm willing to support a pilot, but like I said, I'd like to see, when we go out for requests, that we get some people that are interested in maybe the goat milk or some part of the farming aspect. So thank you.
Councillor Bryce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councillor Brown has put a lot of my thoughts about this already out there. I'm going to support this. I think we can call it pilot, we can do it follow-up investing. The reality is there's going to be a goat go on a piece of property on quite a tiny lot in Saanich, and probably more dependent on the temperament of the goats that are put on this property. It will say whether or not this is a happy experience for the family and for the neighbors or not. We have a letter on our agenda here tonight that talks about a family that had some miniature goats in rural Saanich, very large piece of property, and they were so noisy the family actually had to get rid of them. I think that we have to enter into this with the sense that this family is a part of Saanich, that if these goats do not work out to the satisfaction of their family and their neighbors, that will all be taken into account, and I expect that it will be dealt with appropriately. I don't think we're going to have a great deluge of people wanting to keep goats on their property, because there is a lot of work involved, and I didn't realize until tonight just how long-lived they are. And so it's a big decision for a family to make, but for a Saanich family that's come to us and asked us to take a look at something a bit different, I don't feel there's a big risk here, because I'm expecting that whatever concerns we have and try to represent the community, that your family will share those same concerns and act in accordance.
Mayor Atwell.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a final question. I'm very much attuned to what my colleagues are saying tonight about the scale of this project and the backlog of work that we have. I'm greatly exposed to it in my role as mayor. But I do believe in this many other cases that we have to find a way to be nimble. We can't simply put the little projects to the side or on the back burner, because we've got bigger projects to do and we have limited staffing resources. Certainly, when these things come forward and we address them, it gives us a better sense of the resources that we do need. But ultimately, I think, given what has come to this council to date since the election, that we need to find a way to be nimble. And I think a pilot is a good way to do this, where the bulk of the work is going to be on the participants. And but for that to happen, we have to participate in some way through a motion and by dedicating some staff resources to allow it to happen. If there's a simpler, smaller way to do that, I would support that. But I think that pilots are sometimes the only way you can get the results that you're looking for, to be able to ferret out the experience of this and to know really what it's about and how it's going to turn out and how it's going to be beneficial for the community and even how much fun it's going to be for the participants. So it's for those reasons that I support it. And I hope that going forward, we don't get bogged down by a lot of little requests, but we do need to find a way to be nimble and responsive to members of council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hayes, for a second time.
I won't repeat what my colleagues have said, but I do appreciate them, especially the review from Councillor Brownlow, which touched on several topics that I didn't get to myself. Thank you for that. But I'd just like to clarify with staff, there was a statement, and the Chair, Councillor did clarify, it would be an 18-month pilot, but then to give staff the flexibility to deal with the workload, and the Mayor touched on that, it may run as long as 5 years. So do we have to write the 5-year timeline into the motion?
You could do a minimum. We would need clarity on the actual pilot so that the goat would be in the community and we would be learning from that experience from the family. Then we'd need clarity on how much longer beyond that are you giving staff to do the engagement with the community. I would strongly recommend that the goats be allowed to stay on the property until the end of the actual engagement with the community, which could be up to 5 years. The reason I've expanded it beyond the typical 3 is because you've got an election in there. So you could be dealing with a very different council that may need time to get up to speed on this before it makes a decision. So I'm just giving you that extra room to move as a council, this council and the subsequent after the 2018 election, whoever that is.
Yeah, it could be the same council.
If I could, just for clarification, I think it might be possible for council to indicate that the goats in the pilot could stay in place until council either adopted or decided not to adopt the bylaw. And that would cover off whatever length of time was involved.
That would be correct. It would help staff if you'd clarify the minimum length of the pilot project so that we would let people participating know that the minimum length is 18 months.
Sure.
So, can I make a friend? The Chair, shall I make a friendly amendment?
I think, is that an option 1, 18 months?
Just the max in the options that were outlined, so we'd need direction from you in the motion.
Okay, would the mover like to make an amendment in terms of the time for the pilot?
Well, I would take staff's advice that it would be a minimum of 18 months.
Okay, is that all right with the secretary?
Yes, but I thought there was an additional point that then it would run until the bylaw is enacted or rescinded, which gives you the 5-year flexibility you're asking for.
I'm not sure that needs to be captured in the motion. You're giving us a minimum of 18 months and you're making it very clear the direction that you want.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bergman.
Thank you. Very short and to the point. I do have my concerns, but every once in a while I like the word unanimous, and I would support that word tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Seeing no other speaker, or Councillor Plant.
Thank you. Just so I can be clear, I am supportive of this. I think Councillor Murdoch's creative motion is much appreciated, because I was tempted to lean towards one, but also appreciate the wisdom of staff suggesting how do we deal with it. The only question I have is with this 100-meter approval, is it possible that we get no applicants even for a trial? Because those people who want to be in the trial would need to get the 100-meter approval. So that's a question.
Yes, that is a possibility, and then we would come back to you and ask you to provide direction on that. Alternatively, council this evening could decide to vary it from 100 to 50 meters, which I said is roughly 3 to 4 lots on either side. Or alternatively, you could give us the direction of just notifying those immediately adjacent, so actually physically touching or sharing a common boundary with the subject property.
I think I would be remiss if I did not attempt an amendment to make it to the 50 meters. I'm comfortable with the 50, and I will make that amendment.
I'll second that.
If council is not comfortable with that, then the vote will go that way. But I hear 3 to 4 houses next door. I think that's adequate. I lived on a dairy farm all my life. I know cows are noisy, mini goats can be noisy, but I'm thinking 50 meters, 150 feet should be adequate. If it's not, then those people during the trials will be providing excellent feedback.
So we have an amendment that's moved and seconded. Anybody wish to speak to the amendment? Seeing none, I'll call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Sanders and Councillor Brown opposed. The amendment passes. So we return to the main motion as amended. Just before I call the question, I'm going to indicate that I will support the motion as amended. I would like to congratulate Jillian on her tenacity as well as her enthusiasm. It's not an easy thing to go to various committees to present, to continue to pursue over time. I really do congratulate you. I think those are qualities that will serve you well in areas beyond goats, I would expect in the future. Having said that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? None opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, Julian. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This next item is the consideration of zoning amendment to permit the Pocket Farm Markets. The report of the Director of Planning is recommending the Council amend the zoning bylaw to include the new definition for Pocket Farm Market and also to do other housekeeping amendments to accommodate that. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Chair.
Madam Clerk. Do we have any questions of staff? Seeing none, we are the applicant in this respect. Does the Director of Planning wish to provide any additional information? Not the case, so I will open this up now for public input if anybody's interested in presenting to Council on this item. Hello, Mr. Newby.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Council. My name is Sean Newby, and I live at 1513 Charlton Road. I am here to address the report before you regarding the proposed zoning bylaw changes to allow pocket markets in Saanich. Many people have felt for a long time the need for a farmer's market, and I agree. Many of the other municipalities in the region have had highly successful markets, and Saanich seems to be more than right for one. As a result, Marcia Henderson and I have been quietly working on organizing a farmer's market, or a pocket market, that would take place every Sunday through July and August at the Reynolds School grounds this summer, in hopes that this evening you will approve this step in the process and make the necessary zoning bylaw change. We both have significant experience organizing and promoting events and have taken steps to address questions and mitigate concerns that might arise. We have had regular communication with the managers of both the Moss Street Market and the Esquimalt Market in order to inform ourselves, avoid costly mistakes, and maximize our chances of success. We have canvassed residents around the proposed site and plan to continue the process. The response has been very positive. We have obtained permits from the Victoria School Board to access both parking lots on the school grounds. This is to make sure that there is adequate parking so that local residents won't be impacted. We have been in contact with the Reynolds School Vice Principal Dwayne Doyle, and we just wanted to touch base and meet and greet and make sure we were following all school ground regulations. We've informed the Island Health Authority of the market and have made sure we are conforming with all of their relevant policies. The market will be named the Saanich Sunday Farmers Market and is a member of the British Columbia Association of Farmers Markets. We will operate as a non-profit organization with a mix of volunteer and paid staff similar to the Moss Street Market, and we'll be working with a business model that ensures the market is set up and operated in such a way as to ensure its ongoing viability. We've also taken the appropriate steps to ensure that we have the financial support needed to establish and operate the market to set a solid foundation for its ongoing success. Included in your packages are letters of support from many community associations that also feel as we do that this will be an exciting opportunity and a wonderful draw for our municipality. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marcia Henderson, 660 Goya Road. Good evening, Chair and Council. Thank you for hearing us. Sean gave you the words and I'm going to give you some pictures. Why a farmer's market? Well, they're tremendous community builders. In Saanich, we're not really a farming community, but we're a very diverse community with different interests. A farmer's market that is broad enough in its scope can attract a wide variety of people and really help create community, as well as promoting micro-business and drawing people to existing businesses in the area. What can our market look like? Produce, lots of it. We've been in touch with several different farmers We've had other farmers come to us with inquiries. Food will be the focus of our market, including a diverse array of value-added food products, baking, canning, freezing, drying dehydrated items. Farmers aren't always able to sell fresh produce, so they create their value-added products as well. Food trucks are a big part of a successful farmer's market. Food trucks that we're looking at are not the hot dog vendors. They're the ones who use our own local produce and meat to create meals. Crafts, not just typical handicrafts, but items that are handmade locally with an artisan focus are very popular. Music is a big part of a social experience at a farmer's market. We're talking about instrumental, unplugged. The noise won't go beyond the actual market area. A market is a relaxing social time, bringing benefits to nearby businesses. In our research, we studied several different reports, one from the States and one